Uh-huh.
Are we ready to go?
I was just,
You can?
yeah, absolutely.
We are. Who normally sits here? James and. Yeah, I think Leah is not. Leah is not coming, but James will be here. But James will be here. But this seat. Okay.
Okay, so I'm gonna call you to order.
I'm whatever. I'll just sit where I sit. But I think that's where Igor. I'm just.
Good evening, everyone. Oh, there. Okay. Thank you for coming out to the meeting tonight. It is May 16, 2019, and I'm calling to order a regular meeting of the Rent Stabilization Board. So, Amy, whenever you're ready, you can do roll call, please.
Okay. Commissioner Alpert. If you could turn your microphones on,
Present.
everyone. Thank you. Chang.
Chang's gonna be late.
Murphy.
Present.
Present. Pablet.
Present.
Solosky.
Present.
Simon Weisberg. She will be absent this evening. Sotomayor.
Present.
Commissioner Tregu.
Present.
Laverde.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Great. So I would like to announce that we had a closed-door meeting this evening, and there is nothing to report on this meeting. We were updated on some litigation. Okay? So would anyone like to approve the agenda? Oh, hold on one second, please. So I wanted to give the floor to Commissioner Murphy. So she wants to share something with everyone.
So good evening, everyone. I'm Christina Murphy. I have been serving on the Berkeley Rent Board since 2016, and I really appreciate, and it's been a pleasure and an honor serving on the Rent Board, but unfortunately, I really can't afford to stay in Berkeley anymore, and so I am moving to Vallejo. It's a lot cheaper, and so I really take my oath seriously, and it's important that I be honest. And so as of June 1st, I will be moving to Vallejo, California to be running for some commissions in Vallejo, California, and also to open up a peer respite home for people that are in crisis that suffer from mental health illnesses or challenges. So it's sad but sweet because we need more respites to help people that are in mental health crisis. And my heart is in housing, but my heart is also in mental health right now. And so this will be my last meeting. And so I just want to thank the community for coming out and thank the community for voting for me. And I will still be putting my input in Berkeley. And now that I'll be on the other side, I'll be able to do public comment at City Council. So I look forward to coming back to City Council. If anybody have any questions or want to know about peer respites, we need them in every city. Right now I work at Sally's Place Peer Respite in Hayward, California. It's the first in Alameda County, and we need more peer respites. Not hospitals, not psychiatric hospitals. We need more peer respites. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
I have a room to rent in my house. Would you like to stay there?
I would love to stay at your house.
I have to ask my wife, though.
Okay, so we're moving on now to the approval of the agenda. Commissioner Tregu?
I'd like to approve the agenda with the following changes. I'd like to see if we can move 6A1 to consent. That's the recommendation that the Rent Board adopt a resolution supporting the California Schools and Local Communities Funding Act of 2020. I would also like to move 6A2 to consent with a change that we request that the City Council allocate as much funding as possible to housing from revenue generated from the Berkeley Municipal Code Chapter 9 6A04. And I propose that we move 6A3, all the discretionary waivers, to consent. And also, I'd like to see if we can adjourn this meeting in honor of and appreciation for Commissioner Murphy.
Appreciate that.
Also, unfortunately, in memory of Rob Browning and my former resident of Berkeley and Berkeley tenant, and my fraternity brother, Stephen Primack.
Thank you. Do you have a second? Commissioner,
I will second.
So I have something I wanted to make an amendment to my proposal. So is it possible that we don't move that to consent, please?
we can do that.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry, Chair. I just had one other amendment.
Yes.
We need to, we don't have item 4A, the minutes. So if we can table those to the next meeting?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Okay, I'm friendly to that.
So it means that we're going to move to consent item 6A1, 6A3, which are the waivers, and then we're going to, just hold off on the meetings because we don't have them.
And, sorry, just one last thing. Adjourning the meeting in honor and appreciation of Commissioner Murphy, Rob Browning, and I didn't catch the last name of the gentleman that you mentioned, Commissioner Tregu.
Yeah, Stephen with a PH. Primack, Primack. Thank you.
Okay,
Okay, great.
so roll call?
Yes, let's do roll call.
Okay. Commissioner Alpert?
Aye.
Commissioner Chang is not yet here. Murphy?
Yes.
Poblete?
Aye.
Solosky?
Yes.
Simon Weisberg is absent. Sotovihil?
Yes.
Tregu?
Yes.
Laverde?
Yes.
Motion carries 7002.
Okay, so now we go to action item 6.2, which is Commissioner Murphy's recommendation. Oh, hold on. Hold on. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Let's first go to public forum. We have 3 minutes allotted for speakers, and we have 6 speakers. So I'm going to call the first speaker, Mr. Evan Meyer.
The mic.
Mr. Meyer, hang on just one moment. I want to make sure your mic is on. Why is that not coming on? Okay, go ahead.
Thank you.
Great.
In 1973, I was fortunate enough to buy a duplex in Berkeley. And then rent control passed, and it was exempt. And then 4 weeks ago, I got a letter from the rent board saying that because my property is held in a living trust, that I was no longer exempt. And it asked me to file a registration and become subject to rent control. And I'm here to object to that letter and ask the commissioners to pass a resolution disavowing that action by staff. It's certainly not foreseen in the section 503B, which is cited in the letter that was sent to me. I'm well within my rights as a property owner to live in my own property and to have it held in trust so that I can pass it along to my heirs, probate-free. And I think this is an overreach by rent board staff, and I think it's time for the rent board to take action immediately to remedy this and quash this notion that I'm required to register my property. And I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Commissioner Sotovihil.
So, Jay, I don't think I recall being on the board and hearing someone say that they've been a landlord of a duplex for that long and then getting a letter. Is there some administrative statement or review that you recommend the board check out from?
what we can do is put it on the agenda, and we can respond why, and the reason why we made the determination. I can only we can't discuss it at length tonight because it's not on the agenda.
Right.
But basically, we believe it's in conformance with the changes in the regulation that the board made to 503,
Yes.
where they changed it so that you have to be a natural person in order to qualify for the exemption. That's the short answer, but we'd be happy to bring it back and explore it with the board.
So with that said, does he have a right to appeal that determination similarly to a hearing examiner's determination? I mean, I've never heard this before since being here.
Yes.
Okay, so we should just wait for him to appeal before the board makes any kind of informal or formal
There's
statement whatsoever.
two options. One, he's free to appeal based on the assumption that staff is incorrectly interpreting. That's one option. The other is the board can look at the policy, the change in the regulation from several years ago, and decide whether that was the intent of the change and whether they'd want to alter it or correct it. So those are the two options that I see.
Thank you.
Commissioner Alpert.
Yeah, I just wanted to, I think discussion of this very issue has been scheduled for the next 4x4 meeting. So this has been brought to the attention of the rent board, and we'll be discussing it.
Yes. That was my question. Yes, thank you. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our next speaker, Robert Odom.
Thank you for allowing me to speak for 3 minutes concerning the waiver, discretionary waiver at 3001 Dwight Way of a $500 late registration penalty, which the staff has generously already suggested that it be waived. But I just wanted to add to it and just explain to the board that the apartment it's a shared house, really, and we rented it to a woman on the 17th of June, and she moved out on the 15th of August, so she wasn't really there for even 60 days. And the reason that she moved out is she had a 15-year-old daughter, and she was allowing not one, but several boys to sleep over and spend the night with this underage woman. And I said, no, this won't work. And in the process of the back and forth, it was finally agreed that she would move out by that date. We have now put that part of the house up for rent again to 2 students that are coming to law school beginning in July. And we will, of course, register the apartment on time, and we really appreciate the board concurring with staff's recommendation that the penalty in this case be waived, because we're not rich, and it would be quite a burden on us. So thank you so much for your consideration.
Sure. Thank you very much. Next is Alex Williams.
Good evening. My name is Alex Williams. I'm a social organizer and political activist, as well as a commissioner for the Measure O Committee. I was born and raised in Vallejo, where the majority of my family once lived, and since then, skyrocketing rent costs and predatory banking practices have caused my family to disperse to different parts of the country. We've been conditioned to accept as a fact of life that the core human necessity for shelter from the elements and a personal space in which to live is somehow a privilege, which must be somehow earned. We have been conditioned to accept that a person being forced from their home as punishment for a failure to pay for their right to live in it is somehow necessary and not, as nearly any child could see, an act of pure and explicit violence. It occurs to me that while these inherently violent practices require the complicity and implicit approval of the people at large, the only members of our society who stand to benefit from this practice are a handful of banks and those controlling special interests for whom the commodification of all aspects of human life are a convenient method for slowly but surely gaining control over all aspects of human life. I believe that if we are to behave as a civilized society, we must unify as one people and affirm that housing and equal access to land are fundamental and inalienable human rights, and that the dispossession of any person from their home and shelter is an inexorable act of violence against members of our own community. I strongly encourage an ardent stance on a writ freeze in Berkeley as a common sense first step in meeting this housing crisis with the spirit of universal sisterhood and solidarity. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Warren Chong?
Excuse me if I'm a little nervous, but I have the same situation with this gentleman. I never received a letter, and I went to the rent board and was told that because I had put my property in a living trust, that I had to pay back penalties and everything. So I've already written a letter to my council member, and apparently Jeff Chang is the contact person for my council member. So I suspect he already has my letter. And the letter I wrote was last Monday. So, but I didn't go through any formal appeal process. I don't know if there's a specific process that I'm supposed to go through, but I am disturbed by the fact that I put my property in a trust. I've owned my home for 30 years. So it was kind of shocking to me to know that I've lost my exemption and that I have to pay back penalties. So,
Take your time, sir.
So go ahead, Commissioner Treyger.
I think it may be in the public's interest to know the date, time, and location of the 4x4 committee at which this is on the agenda. And please correct me if I'm wrong, but it is this next Tuesday, May 21st, 3 to 5 p.m., right? And is it at the rent board office or at
It's
the
in
City Hall?
2180 Milvia in the Cypress Room.
2180 Milvia, Cypress Room.
That's on the first floor of City Hall. It's actually on our agenda,
Tuesday.
Mr. Chong. Yeah, I'll highlight
Yeah.
it for you.
I hope I said Tuesday.
I'm not sure.
Tuesday the 21st, yes.
To the staff.
And Commissioner Murphy?
Staff, I have a question. We've seen now a couple of community members come up, and they've said that they've owned their property for many, many years. Is it possible that we can do more investigation to find out why are the community members that have had their property for many, many years are experiencing this type of situation? And can we reach out to the community member that don't really understand how to do the process on appealing, if that's what he has to do next?
Well, I think we have a good grasp in each case why the change happened. It's basically either the law changed or the regulation changed. So how we apply it has changed. Each case is a little different, so we can, when we report back, explain on a case-by-case basis why. We're more than happy. I know that staff has spent, I know with the last gentleman, Allison Preto spent a considerable amount of time reaching out, and we're more than happy to continue doing that. I don't know about Mr. Meyer. I don't know your case, sir. But yeah, we're very happy to do that. We'll look into the process for appealing, but what my concern is that if it's done as an appeal, it's whether we properly interpreted the regulation as opposed to whether the regulation as, is exactly where the board wants to draw the line and interpret things. So I know at the 4x4 committee, it's going to be raised. It's quite possible that a recalibration of what the reg should be might come back to the board. But again, yeah, anybody who, if you do want to find out about the process for formally appealing, if it wasn't in the letter when they made the administrative determination, I'd say contact Ms. Preto in the registration unit, and I'll make sure that she's alerted that you might be calling.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Okay, next, Mr. Andrew Fisher. Sure. Mr. Charles Drexler.
Hello. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. I'm Charles Drexler, and I am an estate planning attorney. I live very close to here in Berkeley, and I've been practicing for 40 years estate planning and trust law in Oakland. And I became aware of the recent decision and the letter that was sent to Mr. Meyer. And it caused me some concern. I want to explain to the board how perhaps trusts work. Trust law has been in existence for as long as this country has been around. And essentially, the kind of trusts we're talking about here are estate planning trusts that are made by homeowners, which allow them to transfer the property to their name as their trustee of the trust and avoid a probate. I have clients that come to me and ask me all the time, if I create a trust, can I avoid my creditors? And the answer is no. If I create a trust, can I avoid paying some taxes? The answer is no. The only thing a trust does, it avoids probate. Now, a trust, I tell people, is the same as you. It has the same social security number as the person who is the homeowner. It is not set up to avoid anything. It is set up to allow a non-probate transfer to your family or to your heirs, beneficiaries. So if we, trust law, the kind of trust that we're talking about that an individual can set up are basically a revocable trust or an irrevocable trust. I can understand if the board has taken the position that if you put your property into an irrevocable trust, you can't get it back anymore, you no longer own it. If you no longer own it, then you are not the owner of record, and you should not be able to qualify for the exemption. But if you put it in a revocable trust, a living trust of the kind that Mr. Meyer put it in, why would the board take the position that someone like that loses their interest in the property from an exemption vantage point? The trust is the same as you. The trust has the same responsibility that you do. You cannot avoid a creditor by putting it in the trust. You cannot avoid any taxes by putting it in the trust. So, what is accomplished by
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Go ahead.
So, you have a question?
It's a simple question. When you advise your clients in this situation, why would you ask them to avoid probate? In terms of transferring to their family members?
Probate is an extremely complex and expensive process by which the courts get involved in overseeing the probity, the proof of transfer of assets from you to your beneficiaries.
Secondly, isn't creating a trust allowing the property owner to be immune from liabilities,
Absolutely not.
from personal liabilities outside?
Absolutely not.
So if you create a trust, right? Say Mr. Meyer has a trust, I'm just using your name since it's been brought up, and you create a trust for him. All his other properties are immune from any liability that his tenant in that particular unit can claim.
Incorrect.
That's, okay,
Not the way it works.
all right.
There is no immunity from liability. You are as liable as if you don't have a trust.
So are these LLCs?
LLC is a different issue. An LLC is a separate legal entity like a corporation,
Correct.
okay? And if you transfer your property into an LLC, perhaps you should lose your exemption, right?
So you can't have living trusts that are LLCs?
No.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Solowski.
Well, I'm not sure that's entirely true, but, all right. I have a revocable living trust with my wife. I have one child, and he's listed as the heir.
As
To
a
avoid
beneficiary.
probate, for that very reason.
Yes.
To make it simple, when
Right.
the time comes.
Correct.
Tomorrow, 10 years, whenever it is.
Who knows?
Right, exactly. We've written this policy to ensure that a real person is leaving real property to a real heir. And the question about LLC is I think, really moot here.
Yes.
Now, there's all kinds of ways you can legally manipulate that with different configurations, different designations. And I'm going to ask our staff to review this with us at some
Yes.
point. But if there's
Mr.
a
Solowski.
name, a person leaving property to an heir, to one person, person to person, I think under our policy that's exempt. Isn't that true or not?
Not.
No,
See,
the-
I'm confused.
The attorney's correct that, I mean, I don't disagree with anything that he said. It's just, it's simply a policy decision as to whether the board wants to include trusts. And I think he's made some excellent points. But it's a policy decision. At the moment, currently, Regulation 503 reads natural persons. And that's fairly self-explanatory.
I am not here before you suggesting that the board should consider an LLC as a natural person.
Okay, because I think you get into all kinds of areas that you don't want to get into.
No, that's,
I'm here to talk about that a living trust created by Mr. Meyer and his wife, where they leave their property to their sons, that should not be ruled he should not be deemed not a natural person, simply because he has created a revocable living trust that holds his own social security number, not a tax ID number like
Not
an
an EIN.
LLC.
Right.
Okay,
Right, I got you.
good.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank
I
you very
understand.
much. Thank you very much.
All right,
I also urge the board not to allow this to go so that every individual who's affected has to file an appeal and go through the expense of having to go to hearing and go. I urge the board to actually make a decision on this for the city of Berkeley.
Okay,
Thank you
so
very much.
staff, I would
Thank
like to actually talk to, you guys about this as well, personally.
certainly, this is one of the agenda items for the 4x4 committee, so that'll be brought then, and we can bring it back to the
Okay,
board
so I'm
if you
going to ask the
wish.
question now. Isn't this board policy? Why is it going to the 4x4?
Point of order.
It is, let me just answer that, because I think I can answer it quickly.
Is it city council's purview?
The agenda item that's being brought has been brought by a council member who's also
All right, okay.
who's also
Understood.
proposing ordinance amendment language.
Understood. Okay, thank you.
I think this is a board issue, and I think the board can handle this.
Thank you very much.
Who's that council member?
Oh, never mind. Actually, I just heard she withdrew that, so I might be wrong.
It's an open-ended discussion about the issue.
Okay. And then last minute was Mr. Schnark.
We still have.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, Charles, let's see, Charles Drexler, but you ceded your time, though. And then you ceded your time, yes. Yeah, when you said you gave him the extra time.
Look like it.
Can we give a?
Well, I can give you 2 minutes, though. Come on, 2 minutes.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you for my 2 minutes. I'm also helping Evan Meyer with this situation that he's faced, and I've spoken to other property owners that have not received letters but do own their properties in trust, and they're similarly concerned. I just want to suggest or encourage what I see already happening, which is a productive conversation about how this, whether or not Regulation 503B should include trusts, and particularly revocable living trusts that are set up by 1 or 2 people. I think that would be a pretty clear way to limit the exemption in spirit with the principle of the golden duplex in the first place. I don't think it could be gamed in a way that would be adverse to rent board interests or to community member, the renters, the renting community. And I would suggest, I don't know how we can be useful. I would imagine that an attorney, I imagine Matt Brown understands trust law somewhat, it sounds like. If there's need for outside counsel, I would suggest that, but I know that trust laws can be confusing, and I would hope that this doesn't stumble on sort of incomplete knowledge of the impact of, or the rules that are at play. So if it's a resolution that is passed, or if it's a regulation that is passed, or if a change to the ordinance that is passed, any of those are welcome. And we have filed a request for administrative determination for Evan Meyer already, so that is in the hands of Matthew Siegel. And if there's traction here, maybe we can ask him to delay his determination so we don't have to go through a needless hearing while this resolution is being done. So that's about it.
Okay, thank you, thank you. And then the last one is C. Schnark, I believe it is?
Christine Schwartz.
Oh, Christine Schwartz.
What did you call, how did you?
Schnark. That's so sorry, Christine.
I write chicken scratch when I'm running fast.
This is how the rent board honors you, Christine.
So
Thank
sorry.
you. Thank you so much.
Hi, Dios mío.
Woo. I got a new name. Good evening. I wanted to say happy belated Mother's Day first.
Yes.
To all the mothers.
Thank you.
Yes, I appreciate it. John, we don't know something. Anyway, secondly, I wanted to note that May is Mental Health Month and give a moment to that. In addition, there were at last night's City Council meeting a presentation about all the passed away homeless individuals, and I wanted to memorialize that as well, because I think that's very important. It actually goes with what our work here is, and it's very important, and I don't think we should pass that point without noticing that. I wanted to commend and thank Christina Murphy, if that's okay, for all your hard work.
Thank you, thank you.
Yes, it was my honor to support you getting on this board. You've done a magnificent job, and I really appreciate watching you from over there every meeting. Thank you so much.
I appreciate that.
Yes, it means a
And
lot
I'll
to
work
me.
on your campaign when you want this seat.
Excellent, thank you. You heard it, folks. And you can come stay with us, too.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
You're welcome. For the 4x4 committee, I was wondering if we could present the issue of list of services for rent-controlled apartments. For instance, I've been quandering about the issue of parking. Why on the list of services it's there at one point and it's gone the next? And I know I put in a call to you, Jay. I haven't heard back. You're probably busy. I know I did. So I'll just keep trying. as well, what was the other thing? Darn it. Oh, harassment. And I know my time's going away. Harassment in Berkeley is a very serious thing. And it's not fun. It actually affects people, families, your lives. It takes up time. It's a big disruption. And I don't think people should just write it off as, oh, that person's just being a jerk. When you're in a business, you're supposed to be professional. People are renting your property. The landlord's workers, the other tenants, the families, everybody is expecting, professional business. And I believe here in the city of Berkeley that it should not go on. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Traeger.
Thank you. So Christine makes a really good point, and I'd like to see if by acclamation we can add a few more folks that we could adjourn tonight's meeting in memory of. And that would be Eric Sibald, or Sibald, S-I-B-B-A-L-D, Frank Bomba, B-O-M-B-A, and Mary Evans, and anyone else who has tragically passed away on the streets of Berkeley.
Okay,
Chair?
go ahead.
Since we're on in memory of, Malcolm X was born May 19th, 1925, and I idolized him in a lot of ways when I was younger. And I still respect so many of the things that he's done. So if we're going to throw out names in memory, Malcolm X was instrumental in a lot of the things that I think a lot of us here at the board, whether we know it or not, follow. So I'll add
Thank
that.
you. Okay, so we've got a long list. I think until the end of my term as chair, I will always want to keep my meetings in honor of Byron Rumsford, our first African-American assembly member and who was a civil rights dynamo.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So now let's move on to our action items. We have item number, consent, I'm sorry. Consent,
We have to. I move the consent calendar as amended.
Okay, thank you very much.
Second.
Second it.
Whoever.
Okay, so now, thank you very much, keeping me straight here. So now we move to action number 6.2.
We need to do a
We
vote.
need a vote.
Okay, so let's take roll call.
Okay, so this,
Public comment on
this is
consent
moving
first.
action items 6A1 and 6A3. Commissioner Alpert.
Aye.
Chang.
Yes.
Murphy.
Yes.
Poblet.
Yes.
Solosky.
Yes.
Sotobillo.
Yes.
Tregu.
Yes.
Laverde.
Oh, yes.
Now we can move to action.
Let's move on. Okay, because I'm excited about this item, actually. So it's item 6A2.
Madam Chair,
yeah.
there's an appeal as well at 7:30.
Yes, there was an appeal at 7:30. Are the two parties here? I have one party.
The other party mentioned that he would not be able to attend.
So then let's do that first then. Thank you very much. Is it okay? Yeah.
Sure.
Let's move forward then. Let's get the ball rolling here. So let's have a,
Oh,
over there.
Right in the center, just right in front of one another.
Hi.
Pleasure to meet you, Mr. Beckman.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you both. Is this okay?
Yes. Are you the appellant or the respondent?
I
am the
Appellant.
The appellant, okay, excellent. Thank you very much. So, before we start, we have the appeal in case number T5738, 3050 Stanton Street. And we have here the appellant. And before we start, we would like to give a review of the procedure. We'll first go with legal staff. We'll give a summary of the case. And then each party will have 7 minutes to address. The appellant first for 5 minutes and the respondent for 7 minutes, but you're here by yourself, so you'll get your 7 minutes. And then I would like to remind you that we're not here to ask for new evidence, or no new evidence is going to be provided. And after each party has spoken, the board will deliberate and take action on the appeal. So, Matt Brown, can you start off, please?
Thank you. Good evening, commissioners. This is an appeal of a hearing examiner's decision that the tenants are entitled to a rent reduction to reflect the fact that one of the 4 purported bedrooms in the rental unit cannot legally be used for sleeping. The rent reduction was awarded at a rate of 25% for the period from the departure of the downstairs tenant, January 2018, to the departure of the petitioners in May of 2018. So I'd like to remind everybody that all the parties have left. Sorry, that the tenants have left. The petitioners have left. Mr. Andrews obviously still owns the building. On appeal, the landlord, Mr. Andrews, argues that the tenants should not have the downstairs room, should have known the downstairs room was not a bedroom, as it was used as a music studio by prior tenants and does not contain a closet. However, it is undisputed that the property was marketed and rented as a 4-bedroom unit, and the tenants were instructed by both the city in March 2017 and Mr. Andrews, the appellant, that use of the downstairs room as a 4th bedroom was illegal. A determination by Berkeley Code Enforcement that a unit or portion thereof is not a legally habitable dwelling does not generally result in displacement of the occupants. However, when a tenant ceases to occupy the illegal space, as happened here in January of 2018, it is not lawful for the landlord or any master tenants to replace the departing tenant. Therefore, the hearing examiner had no choice but to award a proportional rent decrease reflecting the reduction in the number of occupants that occurred when the downstairs tenant moved out. Had the landlord acted to legalize the illegal bedroom, the rent reduction would have ended at the time that the downstairs room became a lawful bedroom rather. In response to legal staff's recommendation, Mr. Andrews now claims to have marketed the property as a 4-bedroom unit. Now claims not to have marketed the property as a 4-bedroom unit and not to have marketed the property since 2005. Craigslist ads from October 2015, and even more importantly, July 2018, after the tenants moved out, after Mr. Andrews had been informed by the city that this could no longer be used as a 4th bedroom, directly contradict Mr. Andrews' claims. The first, from October 2015, was introduced as evidence in petition T5666, which preceded this petition, and cited by the hearing examiner in this petition before you tonight on appeal. The second, dated July 2, 2018, was produced by Mr. Bernard in response to Mr. Andrews' response to the legal staff's recommendation, disputing his own testimony at the hearing, in which he admitted placing the ad and admitted that he, quote, must have believed that the unit contained 4 bedrooms. I'll read from the testimony directly from the tape. This is Mr. Andrews. The hearing examiner asks, so at the time when you posted this ad, was it your belief, whether right or wrong, that this is a 4-unit property? Mr. Andrews responds, 4-bedroom? It must have been. I must have had it in my mind. You know, I'm guessing that I must have. I don't think I would have misprinted it. Yeah. So anyway, I listed the ad, and the ad lasted for a few days. And then Mr. Bernard basically said he's not leaving, and I immediately took it down because I realized it wasn't going to happen. I didn't go back in the house. I remembered there were 4 people living there. Mr. Andrews' testimony directly contradicts what he said in his response to legal staff's recommendation. I'll read to you several paragraphs from this, which directly contradict the fact that I have copies here of an October 2015 ad and then a July 2nd, 2018 ad, after he had been told by the city that this was not a 4-bedroom, he again rented it or advertised it as a 4-bedroom. He writes in all caps, "I never remarketed or relisted the house and re-rented it until 2018, which is after all petitioners had vacated. Here, it was listed as a 3-bedroom house." I have a Craigslist ad here saying 4 bedrooms for this unit. He states that the hearing examiner was, quote, confused. He states, "In fact, there is much evidence that the unit was marketed as a 3-bedroom unit. I don't see any." He says, because I had listed the house for rent I hadn't listed the house in over a decade, and now the downstairs room was being used as a sleeping room, I believe this has led me to the sloppy mistake in my listing. However, after he wrote this response, he had already listed it the prior year after the petitioners had left as a 4-bedroom again. I'm not sure how there is a mistake here. It appears that Mr. Andrews continues to list this as a 4-bedroom, even after being required to rent it only as a 3. We believe that the hearing examiner's decision should be affirmed.
Thank you very much. Can you state your name for the record,
Yeah,
please?
absolutely. Chad Andrews.
Mr. Andrews, you have,
Before we start, I know this might be a little unorthodox, but I would like, because I have prepared remarks, but Mr. Brown has stated something over and over again, and I'd just like to, before we start, say, I did not publish that ad that you're talking about in 2018. That is not my ad. The ad that you keep saying that I'm directly contradicting myself, I rented my place as a 3-bedroom, and the tenants apparently printed that ad looking for another roommate, but that ad did not come from me. Okay, but I'm not happy to start now, if that's all right. And then
okay,
we can
go ahead.
back to that,
We've
of
started
course.
already. Go ahead.
Okay. Dear Board, my name is Chad Andrews. I'm the owner of 3050 Stanton Street in Berkeley. Several years ago, my tenant, Mr. Bernard, asked me if he could Airbnb his room out at my house. I called Nick Traylor, the ex-head of Berkeley Rent Board, and asked him for advice. And Nick told me it was illegal and I should not allow it. I politely responded to Mr. Bernard, and I told him I wouldn't be able to allow him to do this. The response from Mr. Bernard came to me in a barrage of text messages, and then a campaign of harassment and abuse that lasted for years until he finally moved out. Here are a few of the texts. "You should have just went with the fucking deal, you little shit. Just got back to the US and the rent board, and I'm filing several petitions against you for a rent reduction. And I'll win. I'm smarter than you and your lawyer. Just got off the phone with Dave. So you have the neighbors paying just $30 a month extra to cover the gas since we share a gas line? Gas is variable. It's going to be on, fuckhead. Pay us tomorrow. Am I clear? If I don't hear back by 3 p.m. today, then I'll assume the answer is no, and then I lose it. Tick-tock, motherfucker, tick-tock. There's no capitulation on the 3 p.m. response. Understand me? It's time. And onslaught begins. My therapist says I need to calm down, but people like you trigger this venom in me. What's funny is I'm trolling you along the way because you have no recourse, none. How does it feel to be helpless? You're going to feel my wrath, and I'd suggest you tread lightly when responding to me. Yo, get your ass up here. Get him disappear and leave no evidence, okay? I grew up with monsters, so I had to always adapt and be 20 steps ahead of everyone. One of my classmates, Pedo, you can look him up, chopped up his pregnant girlfriend and threw her in his trunk. How's San Anselmo? I see you've read everything.
Is this in the
Just
record?
once.
Sorry, is this in the record?
This was part of our first hearing. The text, the temporary restraining orders, the civil standbys, the restraining order, it was all mentioned at the hearing. Well, that was great. It was all mentioned at the hearing with Omar. May I continue?
I apologize. I didn't mean to interrupt.
Maybe we will, actually, I see you right now. Maybe we will be in Mill Valley soon, and you'll be on the way out. That child of yours you claimed I was robbing may now have to attend shitty public schools. 20 steps ahead of you. You'll never win. How I know all this stuff is the very way in which Google, Amazon, and etc. learn about their customers. You beating me would mean the end of Google, Amazon, Netflix, and the like. LOL. Sleep well, my friend. You're going to make me famous. I've also hired a lawyer and plan to sue you on the basis of discrimination. Thank you. By the way, he knew I had a pregnant wife at the time he was sending me all those texts. So I brought this text immediately into Nick Traylor. Nick advised me to contact the police. I contacted the police, filed a police report. The police told me I needed to file a temporary restraining order. I did. I ended up having to file another temporary restraining order against Mr. Bernard later, and the judge in court stipulated that Mr. Bernard could not contact me by email, phone, or text. I also had to file another police report against Mr. Bernard for vandalism to my property and had to go to small claims court where I was awarded a judgment of $6,000 for these damages, which he never paid. I also had to have asked for at least 8 civil standbys with Berkeley Police while I was doing repairs on the property. Apparently, this all stemmed from me not accepting Mr. Bernard's offer to Airbnb his room and pay me a little extra rent on the side for this service. A couple days ago, Mr. Bernard wrote Maggie Chang an email to postpone this hearing. He wrote, "Dear Maggie, due to short notice, I'd like to request a hearing be postponed as I'll not be able to attend. I'll be out of the country for most of June. Can we reschedule for July and I'll have an attorney present? The landlord has acted in ways that concern me for safety reasons, so myself and the previous tenants will not be available. I have had no contact nor communication with Mr. Bernard since he moved out of my house last June. I have read you this to give you a snapshot of the person I've been dealing with for the last several years. It has been a very unnerving situation. As for legal staff recommendation, I agree with the logic, but is based upon misinformation and completely distorts the facts. I have marketed a house 3 times since I've owned it. In 2000, my recollection that it was marketed as a 3-bedroom house like it was marketed when I bought the house. This makes sense because I rented it to a couple and their friend, and they use the basement room as a music studio. Several years later, my recollection is I reposted the same Craigslist ad, which would make sense, as a 3-bedroom, and again, it makes sense because a couple rented it and 2 friends who logically would have been looking for a 3-bedroom. Again, I listed it one more time in 2018 as a 3-bedroom house. One time, I thought the tenants were moving out in 2015, and I listed the house on Craigslist incorrectly, and I incorrectly put down 4 bedrooms. It's the first time I posted the ad in over 10 years. This ad was posted for a very short period, a few days, a week. No new rental came from this ad. As for the basement room being used as a bedroom, I have no idea when the tenants started using it in this manner. I was never informed of this, nor did I ever approve it. As for Mr. Bernard, I do not know when exactly he started living in the house. I believe it was sometime in 2011. My lease clearly states that there is no subleasing without written approval of landlord. I have no paperwork on Mr. Bernard, and his name is not on my lease, nor on any subleases. These were evictable lease violations. Mr. Bernard is claiming that he believed the house to have 4 bedrooms and that the landlord is responsible for this fallacy. His support rests on 2 things: the erroneous Craigslist ad that was posted at least 4 years after he had already been living in the house, and the erroneous vacancy registration forms. But at the time, he has never claimed he saw these forms.
Thank you very much.
Or based his opinion of the house having 4 bedrooms.
Thank you very
later,
much.
I have just 2 more paragraphs, and I know there was a lot of water and mishap. May I just finish?
Can you finish your statement, please?
Yes,
Thank you
please
very much.
finish.
So his support rests on 2 things: the erroneous Craigslist ad that was posted 4 years after he had been living in the house, and the erroneous vacancy registrations form. But at the same time, he has never claimed he saw these forms or based his opinion of the house having 4 bedrooms before later discovering the incorrect data on these forms. In essence, his argument has always been that because I published a Craigslist ad in 2015 stating a 4-bedroom house, that I must have done the same thing 10 years earlier, even though it seems very likely that the people who rented the house were looking for a 3-bedroom house, not a 4-bedroom house. Remember, the last tenants who responded to my ad were a couple and 2 singles. And when they checked out the house, they found 3 bedrooms and a bonus room in the basement set up as a music studio.
Okay, thank you. That's been this extra 30 seconds that you took. Okay, So Commissioner Alpert, we can ask questions, but we're not going to ask for new evidence. So Commissioner Alpert.
Yeah, question
And-
for staff. Because all of the tenants who are party to this dispute have vacated the property, if we upheld the staff decision, there'd be no ongoing restriction on rent, correct? It would only be a retroactive one-time payment.
That's correct.
Okay, thank
One
you.
other statement. Mr. Andrews has, over the years, at least since 2003, signed vacancy registration forms under penalty of perjury, each time listing 4 bedrooms as the number of bedrooms in this unit.
And how many times has that been submitted?
We have 3 in the record.
Okay, thank you.
So it really doesn't matter what the tenants believed in those cases. These are forms signed under penalty of perjury that inform us, and the tenants receive copies of this through rent validation reports of the number of bedrooms in the property.
May I respond to that?
No, we don't need to have the discussion because you already presented all your information. So Commissioner Solosky.
Thank you, Chair Laverde. So I was going to, similarly to what Councilor Brown just brought up, and I'm going to preface this by saying, no matter how egregious a tenant's language and even behavior is or was, and some of it appears to be egregious, we're dealing with fact here. We're not dealing with past blood over the dam or under the bridge or whatever, okay? We have evidence of ads that specify 4 bedrooms. Now, even if I were to believe you that that was an error, we have evidence of registration forms filed with the rent board for a 4-bedroom unit. Now, I could maybe forgive the ads, thinking, okay, maybe he did make a mistake. But the two things together are somewhat insurmountable in my mind. And hence, I'm going to move that we affirm the hearing decision,
And I'll second
our hearing officer's decision, okay? Because I just don't see how I can reconcile the two of those.
We have a second?
And I totally agree, and I'll second that.
Okay. So let's take a roll. Call?
This is to affirm the hearing examiner's decision?
Yes.
Commissioner Alpert?
I'm sorry to interrupt you guys. Wasn't there supposed to be more time? 5 and then 2?
You got 7 minutes because you're the only person here. So you got your 7 minutes.
If the other party was here,
Microphone, please. Sully?
Yes.
And no one's
Thank
going to
you.
ask me any questions. You're going to already have the vote with asking me any
No,
questions? Am I missing something?
Yeah, that's what's
Can
happening.
I?
That's what's happening.
Go ahead, Commissioner Traeger.
Yeah, so this is a quasi-judicial hearing, and I believe you should have gotten a copy of the rules of procedure of how this hearing is conducted. There is a strict limit of 7 minutes per party. In this case, you are the sole party who is here. We actually went out of our way to give you additional time so that you would have an opportunity to put into the record the other part of your prepared statement. But our procedures are not equipped such that we could grant more time, because that would sacrifice the equity of the process. We want to make sure that every party before this body gets the same amount of time to state their case.
Thank you. Very eloquently said. We've taken a vote?
No, we were in the middle of a vote.
Okay, so where were we?
Commissioner Alpert voted
Aye.
yes. I was about to call on Commissioner Chang.
Yes.
Thank you. Murphy?
Yes.
Pablet?
Yes.
Solosky?
Yes.
Sotoville?
Yes.
Tregub?
Yes.
Laverde.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Well, I'm really glad that you guys wanted to ask me some questions. I got to admit, I mean, he brought up something that was so strong, and the evidence is so strong.
Your time is up.
I didn't even get a chance to respond
Thank
to
you
that.
very much. Thank you very much. I'd like to take a 10-minute break, please. So,
That's the most unbelievable 10 minutes I've spent in my entire life. All right.
let's take a 10-minute break.
Just make sure your mics are off. Thanks.
Well, thank you for coming out.
I feel bad for the guy.
Look at security, look at security. Security. Security.
They're not tenants anymore, so he can't do anything. So what'll happen is he can try and collect on the guy who owes him $6,000, and the guy who he now owes his tenants $3,000-something, but he can refuse to let who he owes $6,000 his third of the $3,000. It's like take it up in civil court. Not
So no, because I don't see how a judge would be.
Because it's pretty clear. I mean, don't get it. I said it. I might.
It was just that. You could claim that he didn't put that up. Anyone could put that up. Only the landlord can.
Yeah, a lawyer would, there's a code of conduct for that.
So that was so funny. No, the thing is, their interpretation of that statute is entirely just
Twist reality like our president does.
I mean, my thing is, what's the whole point of asking questions when we have the evidence in front of us?
Right.
We have,
I know, try not to act out.
I guess I could have added that, but it's kind of obvious.
the kids jumping in like bully police.
I was like, excuse me, what's the score of the game?
my most frustrating. I think it's just a discussion at this point. I'm sorry. I apologize. Living trust.
Okay.
So,
10 minutes?
I just talked to Matt about it. He explained it really well. Basically, there was a lawsuit in Oakland that basically, it was like, so it was before I was on the team. The lawsuit in Oakland made so that, like, this could be considered, like, owner occupiers and and then, so what we said is you have to be an actual person, right?
Amy?
Right. But
We're going to call it back to order?
don't count as natural people. So we went too big, and so now what we're going to do is recorrect. Anyway,
So they're gonna add it?
Probably. I mean,
Yeah.
what I'm hoping is that we can get to.
No, you guys.
No. I'm calling the meeting back to order. Thank you very much. Okay, thank you very much. So, getting back to our agenda items here. So we now go to action item 6A2, the recommendation that the Rent Board requests the City Council allocate all revenues generated from the Berkeley Municipal Code, Chapter 904, to be dedicated for development of housing units. So Commissioner Murphy, this is her item, so I'm going to let you describe what it is you are proposing here today.
Okay.
Commissioner, okay, after, okay, go ahead.
Okay, so I guess afterwards, I want to amend it because I want to add some other stuff to it, if that's okay. Is that okay?
So why don't you give us a description and tell us what you're proposing?
Okay, so you read it already, and what I'm proposing is that the non-medical cannabis businesses are taxing, it used to be 12%, if I'm not mistaken, and now it's 5%, and it goes into the general funds. Right now, we all know that we're having a housing crisis right now, and people, low income, women with children, people with mental health, people with disabilities, and people that are victims of domestic violence are without places to live, and they can't afford it. So what I'm asking is that I'm asking for the board to support me in sending this recommendation over to the City Council to allocate the tax that are the revenues generated from the BMC Chapter 9.4 tax rate for the non-medical cannabis business to immediately grant housing subsidies for women with children who are homeless or domestic violence survivors or people with a history of mental health and very low to no income.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions about this proposal? I go first with, so we have questions about this proposal? You have some questions, clarification for this, Commissioner Chang? Okay, hold on, let's go for questions and with some clarification.
I'm in the same boat, but I
Okay.
have a comment too.
You have a comment? Okay, then let's go for, someone wants to move this? Or second it?
We can have discussion.
Let me ask a question.
Sure.
And I have no problem supporting this, and I think council can amend it if they see fit in some ways. But I'm wondering how someone with no income would qualify for housing. Is there a way for that to happen?
So they could create housing subsidies that last for 6 months, that last for 3 months with wraparound services that they can get from maybe the Berkeley Drop-In or the Homeless Hub or Berkeley Food and Housing. They can get case management to help them find more permanent housing.
Okay.
It can pay for a room in someone's house if some of these homeowners are gracious enough to allocate some of their rooms for 3 months at a time for these subsidies.
So it would be a 3 month, 6 months, whatever. It would be short-term housing, but it would be housing. Yes. Okay. Okay. Understood. Because I was trying to wrap my head around that. Thank you.
Okay, let's see, do you have a question, Commissioner Sotovejil?
Kind of want to talk about it?
Yeah, no, we're still getting clarifications on it first. So Commissioner Trigub.
Thank you, Commissioner Murphy, for introducing this, and I absolutely would like to support the intent of this. I just have a question. Would you be open to changing the language that says as much funding as possible to go into housing? And I'm happy to, when we get into discussion, I'm more than happy to state the reasons for the question, but I just wanted to see if that is something that you might entertain upon discussion.
Do I respond or no?
You can respond.
Well, I wanted to be specifically to this sales tax that happens because the way it goes into the general funds is just out. So I want to specify where it goes. Right now, some funds go into the housing, right? but it doesn't really specify the way that this was go directly to these people in this population. But thank you.
Yeah, and I can respond to that during discussion.
Okay. Commissioner Sotovejil.
So I think this is discussion.
No, this is question, this is clarification for this. This is not discussion. We're just clarifying what this law might be able to do. That's what I'm doing right now.
Okay.
Okay? Great. Do we have a second on this motion? Has anyone, well, actually, I should ask.
Oh, I'll second for
I'll
the-
second, or whoever.
Go ahead.
There's others too.
I think Christina Murphy is going to motion.
And so,
Move. So you want to move?
so I would like to move, but I would like to friendly ask would Commissioner Soli DeVico and Commissioner Chan would like to co-sponsor this with me as well.
Yes.
Yes, please, thank you.
Great.
Thank you, Commissioner Murphy.
So we've moved this, and it's been seconded?
We had several seconds. Who won?
No, we were co-sponsors.
I heard that part, but several people also seconded, and I wasn't clear who.
I'll second.
Great, thank you.
Okay, so I just would like to discuss this a little bit, just to, so Commissioner Sotovejil, and then I have Commissioner Traeger.
Thank you. I want to praise Commissioner Murphy for looking outside the box in our housing crisis and examining specific taxation policies that are irrational, that we can utilize in order to fund women, women with children, women who are victims of domestic violence, members of our community who have extremely low income and low income and no income. And I know that you've worked with all of that, all of the folks in that umbrella. And so thank you for doing that, sincerely. It is a very beautiful last act since you've decided to resign, which I will never forgive you for. Nonetheless, when the government decides to tax what I consider this a sin tax, saying that non-medical cannabis is a sin to utilize, I think it's egregious because it's a medicine. They're not taxing pharmaceuticals that are sold out of our pharmaceutical CVSs or our pharmacies as sin taxes, but they destroy families. And so I think the city was very reactionary when creating a policy to tax marijuana. And so with their irrationality and reaction, we can benefit by trying to use this money to help out the populations that you've identified. So thank you for that. And Commissioner Traeger, I did want to sincerely show my concern when your statement was, as much as possible, when we're in a state of crisis, we need a definitive amount, which is the entire amount, I think, is what Commissioner Murphy is asking for. So the time for compromising is over. The time for watered down language must be eliminated. We must be strong. We must be unified. We must look outside the box. And thank you, Commissioner Murphy.
Thank you.
Did you want to say something, Commissioner Traeger? I know you want to discuss something.
I did want to discuss it, and I probably should have been more clear because the amount that I am thinking about is, I think what council is considering right now, please correct me if I'm wrong, those of you who are on council staff, is starting at 50% of that revenue. What I'm looking at is at least 75% of the income. And the reason I am suggesting that amount is there is, sadly, and we are in a time of multiple crises, and all of them probably start with that there is a lack of housing that folks can afford, and that's why I really want to make sure that at least 3/4 of the revenue we're talking about really does go to lower income housing. As you know, there are services that are also severely underfunded. There are mental health services. Staff is losing funding, but every single day by the federal government, and you would know that better than me. And so I just want to keep this open to the possibility that there may be other legitimate needs that are very urgent. But to let you know, Commissioner Sotovejil, on what has been going on, we had our second Measure O committee yesterday. We are looking to, in the next 4 months, allocate the first $30 million of the $135 million of funding for affordable housing that the voters generally passed. On top of that, I helped, as you did as well, campaign for Measure U1. That is generating $5 million a year, and the Housing Commission is asking for all of that funding, which is also going to the general fund, to be allocated for anti-displacement and lower income services. So, for instance, this recommendation, I mean, there are other needs such as anti-displacement funding that are also very important, in addition to the very important ones that are in the statement. So that would be my suggestion, just to make it very clear and leave absolutely no question to the council that we feel that the vast majority of the funding, or all of it, because the recommendation is to say at least 75%, be dedicated to this purpose.
That's not the recommendation.
Thank you. So, Commissioner Murphy.
So I really thank you. Thank you for your opinion. What I want to say is that we're not talking about affordable housing right now. In the city, we're talking about we need affordable housing. We need housing that people can afford, right? But we all know that the people that have low income, the people that I'm describing, this population right here, is not the people that's going to qualify for that affordable housing. I'm asking for a special, I'm asking for that 5% that goes into the general funds, go directly to help this population of people. Women with children, homeless, women with children, people with mental health, histories of mental health. These are and people, victims of domestic violence, and I'm not just going to say women, because there are men that are going through domestic violence, and I also want to say single fathers that have kids, because we have a lot of cases of that right now. And so I just think that it's important that we stick to our guns and ask for funding to go in the areas. Yes, you're right. There are other needs in Berkeley, but I'm asking for that 5% that goes in the general funds to go towards this. 1% of the MHSA funds gave us almost like $490 million, right, to help mental health services, right? So if they do 1%, I'm asking for 5%. I'm not sure if you are a patient or if you go into the cannabis club or if you know people that go in there, their medication, even recreational, their medication costs maybe $25, right? But on top of that, you have to spend another $20 or $15 more just to get your medicine. You're sacrificing eating to take your medicine, and your medicine is what's helping you eat. So there's a lot of funds and a lot of taxes that could be used that come out of that to go. Other states are doing it. You could check. Other states are doing it. They're using some of those funds to help with housing and help with the immediate crisis needs that are at hand right now. Affordable housing, we're working on that. That's going to take 5 years, 10 years. I'm talking about right now, what can we do for the people that are suffering?
Thank you. Commissioner Chen.
Yeah, I just want to say, I'm hearing both Commissioner Tragub and Commissioner Sotovejil, and Commissioner Sotovejil, I wish you were actually more like Commissioner Tragub, and you do sit on more commissions, because that way you would know more things. So I was wondering if you two could work something out maybe.
So let me answer that.
Okay.
Let me just answer that, please. is I work on the grounds now, and I don't have time to sit at commission to commission to commission. I trust that the commissions that are empowered to allocate funding that the voters voted for is going to go to that direction. Berkeley Way project, other affordable housing, displacement, anti-displacement stuff, I get that. But there is a gap when a woman this week and last week and the week before comes to my office with children and says, I have no place to go. I have no money. I was beat up last week. I have no solution. But this resolution or this recommendation here provides that solution. And so it's not about 50%, 75%. It's 100% of this 5% that goes into the general fund that was never earmarked to do a goddamn thing, but to tax people who use cannabis for medical purposes or non-medical purposes to support people who are distressed and there is no economic solution for them. So that's the bottom line of this proposal. And it's not about sitting on commission after commission. I've done that. And guess where it goes? Nowhere. It takes a long time. So I don't feel like being attacked for not being on commissions. Rather, I should be happy that I'm working on the grounds and understanding where funding needs to be going. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Halpert.
I move to call the question.
Second.
Before we vote, well, I actually wanted to try to see if Commissioner Murphy was open to an amendment.
No, let's go.
No, because
Can I ask one question?
I
for
really
Trey
want to
Group?
vote for it, and
just wanna ask a
have
question.
suggested amendment.
So Commissioner Murphy.
I just want to get some clarity. Forgive me, but I want to understand. I heard a couple of commissioners mention, because some of the commissioners do work directly with representatives in the city council. So I understand, and I understand the process. So if there's something that you know that has something to do with this marijuana tax, then I would like to hear about that, because then I would be more moved to add something else. But if you don't have any direct answer around that you're working with the city council that's saying, hey, this is what I'm working on. I'm working on getting 50% of this non-medical cannabis tax to go towards housing, then I understand where you're coming from. But you're not really, no one is really saying, hey, the city council is saying that I've already talked to them about your item. I already went to them on the side and told them what you're doing, and they said that they'll agree if you say 50% or 75%, not the whole 100%. It's only 5%, only 5%.
Go ahead, Commissioner Tragub.
Thank you. And thank you for temporarily waiving the motion to call the question. I really appreciate Commissioner Murphy's, discussion and explanation of what brought you to do this item. And I think when I first read it, it wasn't the nexus that we have to make to get this to the city council and to get the city council to actually vote for it was not as clear to me as it is now. I wanted to see if you might be amenable to an amendment to the effect of at the end, so where it, specifically for the development, and I would say of housing, period, just remove units, because it can be, there are various there are various housing types, and you mentioned this previously. There are that could be subsidized, including home sharing arrangements, including tiny homes, including just something that is a shelter, as well as units in the traditional sense. And then going further and saying, with an emphasis on underserved populations, such as, but not limited to, single parents or caretakers, individuals and families transitioning out of homelessness, veterans, etc. if you would be open to that.
I'm open to the first part. The second part, you kind of watering it down for me. I want to stick to people with mental health, women with children, single fathers with children, low income to no income, and domestic violence victims.
Yeah, then whatever it is that you feel should be emphasized. I just don't see it in the recommendation, so I would love to vote for something that is very clear. Okay, this is the population that we are
Okay.
recommending be served
All
with those
right.
funds.
Okay, so what I just said, you would agree to?
Absolutely.
Okay, great. Well then, would you like me to try
So
to
what
reread it?
is, yeah, read it, so
All right.
that's the changes you want to make to it.
Yes.
So,
Everybody else okay with that?
well,
I'm going to need the maker to restate the motion as it now stands.
Okay. I would like the board to support me in recommending that the Berkeley Rent Stabilization Board request that the city council allocate all the revenues generated from BMC Chapter 9.4, the tax rate for non-medical cannabis business, the immediate grant housing subsidies for women with children, single fathers with children who are homeless, victims of domestic violence, also people with mental health or either a history of mental health, and low to no income.
And
Period.
To-
Is that period?
Yes.
Did you mean to say low to no income or very low income? Because
Yes,
the item
thank
says
you. Very low
Very low income to no
income. Very low to no income. Because those are the people that are missing. Those are the people that don't get that much help. The very low to low. Yep, not low income, but the very low to low income.
Can I make just a suggestion to make this crystal clear when it gets to the council in parentheticals after very low income to no income, individuals or households that receive 50% or less of the area median income,
Igor,
which is the definition
You don't
of-
get it.
That,
no, you haven't
I'm
been
sorry,
called on.
I don't
Come
mean
on.
to, I didn't mean to say
Okay.
that, excuse me, sorry.
Because very low income has a very specific meaning, and I just, when this gets to council, I want them to be absolutely understanding of what kind of population. we
so when we say very low, that's not 50%. Very low would be 20, very low, 30 and 20% if I'm not mistaken. Do anybody know the exact?
Yes.
What is it?
Then actually, so what, if he said 30% or below, that's extremely low income.
Yes.
So I would suggest that instead of very low, we just say extremely low
Thank
income.
you. I'll do that. Extremely low. All right, I'll accept that friendly amendment. Thank you.
And just one question. Were we eliminating the word units after housing?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so just housing, development of housing, got it.
Okay, Commissioner Chang and then Commissioner Solosky.
Thank you. So as the co-sponsor of the motion, I just wanted to see if it's okay that we just state single parents instead of single mothers and single fathers.
Yes.
Say single parents. Thank you.
Great.
And Commissioner Solosky.
Well, I just want, as the seconder, I'm okay with these
Okay,
modifications.
Thank you.
So we can move forward
we can move forward.
whenever you're ready.
Okay,
Can I say one quick thing?
you can say one more thing.
And what I'm hoping is that the people that do work with the representatives of the city council, that you help continue to push this on while you're in there. You know, I depend on y'all to still make it happen, because all of you work with different representatives, so please, get this pushed through the city council. Work with them.
Okay, Commissioner Sotovihil.
Thank you. I did want to follow up because I don't think Commissioner Murphy, her question was answered, and I do want to hear that question answered by someone who indicated that the council is considering utilizing this exact tax for housing subsidies. Is that accurate, or is that just in, so who said that earlier?
I did, and it was based on, I think, recommendations that I saw on the council agendas, but I am by no means an expert on what is being considered. I would defer to those of our colleagues who are on council staff.
So there's no proof of that. So thank you, Commissioner Murphy, for bringing that forward.
Okay, so we've had a motion, it's been seconded, and we've changed the, we've made some amendments.
Should we read it?
Would you like to read it? Can you read it, please,
Sure.
one more time?
So the motion I have is that the Berkeley Rent Stabilization Board request that the City Council allocate all revenue generated from BMC, excuse me, Chapter 9.04, tax rate for non-medical cannabis businesses, to be dedicated specifically for the development of housing between between extremely low income to no income, parenthetically, individuals or households who receive 50% or less of area median income.
It's going to be 30 now,
It's
30%
going to be 30.
of area median income or less.
And that, and this is where I need help with the wording, and that this should include single parents, victims of domestic violence, and people with mental health issues or a history of mental health issues. So where would you like that last clause to fit in?
I'm sorry, can you say the last part? Because I didn't hear you say to immediately grant housing subsidies so that the money would go into like, it would become like housing subsidies. You hear what I'm saying? So like, if there's housing subsidies for people to get into the housing, then they can use a subsidy instead of having to go into waiting to get into permanent housing. That might not be available, and then they won't never be able to use the money. So we might have to specify grant subsidies. What do you
So
know?
where would you like that to fit into the motion?
Go ahead.
May I suggest, I think it's fine where it's at, but maybe subsidies and/or funding, subsidies, comma, assistance, comma, funding for, and then it's just very clear that it's by all means necessary. It's whatever the structure is, because subsidies is, it can describe a particular program, like it can be Section 8, it can be something else. But it sounds, what you're talking about is whatever the money coming into the general fund is, did it be used in any possible way, whether it's going to the Housing Trust Fund, to provide, I see you shaking your head,
No, the
Commissioner
funding's supposed to go to
Sotomayor,
this.
but I'm really asking Commissioner Murphy because she is the maker of the motion.
Oh, well, actually, no,
What
that's
is-
not what I was saying. I'm saying that it doesn't go just into the housing, it goes to the housing for this population only.
So you want, so I'm going to call myself on here because I have not spoken. And I know we're making the amendment, so you want this money to be allocated specifically for this population? You want something carved out for this population?
Yes, from that 5%.
So, and the language doesn't say that at all. I mean, it says to go to this population.
It can say whatever you'd like it to say.
Yes.
We just need to word it that way.
So to go to this population.
Okay.
So do you want me to give it another shot, and then you can
Yes,
just
give
correct
her
me?
one more shot.
Okay, so that the motion that I've got is the Berkeley Rent Stabilization Board requests that City Council allocate all revenue generated from BMC Chapter 9.04, tax rate for non-medical cannabis businesses, to be dedicated specifically for the subsidies, funding, and development of housing for individuals or households who receive 30% or less of area median income, as well as single parents, victims of domestic violence, people with mental health issues or a history of mental health issues.
Shouldn't it just be instead of as well as, just including?
Yes.
Whatever you'd like to say,
Okay,
including?
we could say including specifically single parents.
Including?
Including?
Yeah, we can say.
I'm waiting to hear it from the maker of the motion.
Yes, specifically.
Specifically including or
Yes.
specifically?
Excuse me?
Specifically including or just specifically?
Specifically including.
Got it. Okay. Is that amenable to the seconder?
Yes.
I'd like to call the question again.
Sorry.
Hold up, let me,
It's non-debatable and non.
I really want you guys to, I really want you to forgive me for having to keep bringing it up. I know y'all ready to move on, but this is something that I'm really trying to get clear. Like I said, this is my last meeting, so I know y'all want to push this on, but I really want to make sure I get the language right so it don't get dusted under the rug once it get to city council.
Thank you. So, I mean, Commissioner Sotovejil, I mean, unless you're going to add something new, you're going
yeah.
to change language to
Yeah.
this. The seconder liked the language already. So what are you
Yeah.
providing? What are you providing?
I want to add immediate subsidy.
Okay, hold on, because,
The immediate grant housing subsidy.
okay, hold on a second.
So immediate subsidy, the language there is intended to preclude this money from going to the Housing Trust Fund, because Housing Trust Fund has been used for people who have 80% AMI.
Yes.
We're talking about people who do not qualify.
We
So if we
understand.
say
So
immediate subsidy in the language, it goes for those folks who
Great.
get the housing vouchers to the motels, is what we're talking about.
Okay, great. So let's make sure that Amy, thank you for the clarification.
It's not going too far.
No, that's perfect.
So I'm going to suggest immediate emergency
Yes.
subsidies, because that's exactly
Yes.
what it is.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And that clarifies
Yes,
it, to
thank
me,
you.
anyway.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
good.
So where is that going to go in the language?
Correct.
So let's make it easy for Amy. So where do we want this to go in the language?
Right after business to immediately grant emergency subsidies for women with, for
Single
single
parents.
parents with children, victims of domestic violence, people with a history of mental health, and
She's got the language.
you got the part about the 30%.
Individuals or households who receive 30% or less of AMI,
Yes.
area median income, sorry. Okay, so
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I'm so sorry to see if we can add a few more things, but can we, after parents, say guardians and/or caretakers? Because there are those taking care of family who are not biological parents.
Are you okay with that? I am.
I don't see why not.
Yeah.
Trigger.
I think it's okay.
More inclusive.
Yes.
But-
Because you're right, there are other people that are taking care of, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, you're right.
And then I also wanted to thank Commissioner Murphy for clarifying that you do not want the funds to go into the Housing Trust Fund. Just to point out, this still aligns with your argument, but the Housing Trust Fund guidelines are set up so that something can only be funded
Right.
if it goes to housing of 60%, not 80% every median income. But since we're talking about 30% or below, and that's what I was talking to Amy about, I just wanted to make it really clear that it's going to extremely low income to no income. So I really appreciate the process we went through. I think this makes this motion very concrete, and I'm proud to support it.
Thank you.
And yes, thank you very much. It's an excellent proposal. I really like it. Okay,
you.
so now
Call
we
the
can go, we've called the question, so let's vote on this. Let's do a roll call. Can we?
All right, I want to make sure I'm clear on what you're voting on.
Okay,
So-
okay, well,
Sorry,
if you have any doubt, go ahead, Amy. I mean,
I'm going to read it one more time just to make sure I have it correctly
Sure,
for the
please.
record.
Thank you.
So the motion is that the Berkeley Rent Stabilization Board requests that the council allocate all revenue generated from BMC Chapter 9.04 to be immediately allocated to grant emergency subsidies, funding, and development of housing, for individuals or households who receive 30% or less of area median income,
Sorry,
including...
Amy, can we stop you for a sec? I think there was a part that
Yeah, we
got
don't
changed.
want to say development of housing. It costs billions and millions of dollars to develop housing. We want emergency subsidies to
Subsidies
house
and
people
funding.
now.
So, and eliminate the word development?
Yes.
Okay. Emergency subsidies and funding for housing
Yes.
for those individuals or households who receive 30% or less of area median income, including single parents, victims of domestic violence, people with mental health issues, and I need the specific language for the guardian.
Yeah, we don't say issues in our community no more. We say mental health challenges because challenges could be fixed with tools. So we don't say illnesses or, so if you could change that word, please. Thank you.
To mental health challenges? To change it to...
History with mental health.
Okay.
History of mental health?
Yes.
Okay. History of mental health.
Except everybody has a history of mental health.
So mental challenges? A history of mental health challenges?
I just don't want us to use the word illness.
I didn't say illness, I said issues. Which
She
is-
had
And I
issues.
don't,
Change it to challenges.
Which is
let's
what
say
you had stated
challenges.
before. Mental health
Challenges is fine.
challenges.
Yes.
So is it adults with underage children? Do you want to just leave it at that? Guardian adults with underage children?
I think we were just.
Because the
using
question
it as-
was, how do we define, what are we saying?
So I want it to be single parents with children. So it can be underage, or overage, or middle
And
age.
guardian, though, but you
And the
also-
guardian, yes.
So guardians,
Single
Parents and guardians.
And
Yes.
guardians
Yes.
of.
There you go.
And guardians with children?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Do you want me to read it one more time?
yes, yes.
Okay.
Do the staff agree to this? Is
No,
this
no, no.
okay? Oh, I just want to make sure the staff, it's okay.
They're good.
Oh, okay.
They're bringing them.
Okay,
Okay.
go ahead. We're going to read it one more
Hopefully
time, Amy.
This will be the final. Motion that the Berkeley Rent Stabilization Board requests that City Council allocate all revenue generated from BMC Chapter 9.04 to be immediately allocated to grant emergency subsidies and funding to individuals or households who receive 30% or less of area median income, including single parents and guardians with children, victims of domestic violence, and those with mental health challenges.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Okay, so we've reached consensus.
Oh, specifically wasn't in there.
Oh, good point.
Where do you want specifically?
Should it go before the 30% or after the 30%? Because that's the first line.
Here you have it specifically for the development of housing units, but we've taken that out. I can add it to immediately allocated to grant emergency subsidies and funding specifically for, and then the list of.
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
Got it. Specifically for. Okay. Now I think we have it.
Okay, so we've called to question. So let's do a roll call.
Okay. Commissioner Alpert,
Aye.
Chang,
Yes.
Murphy,
Yes.
Poblet,
Yes.
Solosky,
Yes.
Simon Weisberg is absent, Sotomayor,
Yes.
Tregu,
Yes.
Laverde.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
I just want to
Yay.
thank everybody for supporting me on this. Thank you.
It's a very good one. I like it.
Chair Laverde?
You're welcome.
I got a question. So throughout our time being here on the rent board, we've gone through language changes like this specific situation without seeing it on our screen or on a piece of paper, and we're listening to it. I think administratively for us to understand, I think Commissioner Poblet may agree, that if we can see the text being modified on the screen in the future would be better for everyone involved here. And how we do that, we could do a simple Google Doc or something that's on our screen so even the audience can see what we're talking
Maybe
about.
this might be something that the technology committee might want to consider doing that to see how that might work. I mean, we all have it's either on our screen or if we printed out our agenda, we know it is. Well, I mean, we know what it is, but that is a good point. So, but that means some technology. So maybe that's something the technology committee might want to consider.
Well, the only point about that is we've never had the technology group
The
meet,
technology
but,
committee right now is actually set a schedule to meet.
Oh, great.
Commissioner Chang actually.
oh, wow.
Yes.
Oh, my
So-
God.
But we'll get to that in our agenda.
Thank you
Thank
so much.
Okay, so let's keep on moving now. Thank you very much. So now we go to.
I actually had one question before we
Yes,
leave this.
go ahead.
We don't need to discuss it now, but if anybody knows when this is scheduled to go to council, so that I know how to prepare, I want to coordinate it, so that it
Thank
goes with
you.
the item. So if anybody knows that, if you could just send me an email. so that we can get it there at the appropriate time.
I think it should just be a simple communication to council and maybe sent to the 4x4 and put on the 4x4 agenda from the board. Does that make sense?
We can consider that, yes.
I think
Commissioner
I have
Trigger.
a quite similar suggestion, and that would be to send it now to the council, just so that they, because sometimes by the time an item is agendized, it's already too late, opinions are forming. But then also relying on, in particular, those who are on council staff to inform us if there is an item in the future that would specifically consider where to put tax revenues, to send it out again.
Okay, good. Yeah, I just wasn't sure if there was something that was coming up. So if I put something in the hopper and it took 6 weeks, that's a different process than if something were coming up in 2 weeks, I'd send it as a communication to a specific item. So if there's any history, just let me know of that. Okay.
Okay, moving on along now. So now we go to Section 7, Information Announcements and News Articles. So the Executive Director is going to give us an update on the recruitment and the rent board staffing model.
So just point of information. All the waivers went to consent?
Yes.
Okay. I'm just making sure that we're doing this right.
Yes. Thank you for checking.
The recruitment for the deputy director and the hearing examiner classifications have closed. I will expect to be getting the eligibility list within the next week or so. I know that the review is completed for the deputy. I have not received either of the two lists, but expect to get those in the next few weeks, or hopefully by next week. The only other update on the staffing model is that we have a temporary office specialist to assist us with our registration process that we believe will be starting in the first week of June.
Oh, nice, nice. Okay, and then let's just move on straight to the RFP on the digitized files for the new database. Any update on there?
We are very close to issuing the RFP on the digitized files. I believe it'll go out by the end of the month. The RFP for the new database solution, a little bit later, but for sure by or before mid-June.
Okay, great. And then anything new on AB 53? You want to go?
Yes, in your packet is the letter that we sent to the author of the bill. Our understanding, a little bit before the meeting, I was informed that the bill was amended, so weakened somewhat, so we're in the process of re-evaluating it. We might come back next month and suggest that you change your position. So I just wanted to alert you. I don't have any of the specifics of how it was altered, but there's a possibility that the board might no longer want to fully support it based upon the changes.
Commissioner Trigger.
Yeah, and I wanted to just add to that, Commissioner Chang and I attended an event where and you may have to help me with the name of the campaign that we voted to support in that meeting that the rent board also voted, which is not Ban the Box, it's called something else, but Second Chance. And so it's the coalition that is actually, that is leading this really important conversation and campaign. They have requested that the bill be pulled out of consideration, which it has, but that the Second Chance ordinances, that they start at the local level and potentially merge into a future statewide bill. So and I want to really commend Commissioner Chang for bringing forward the Second Chance, or I think it was your committee that recommended it. So we're already on record supporting that, and it would be consistent in keeping with the request of the coalition working on this to then withdraw support from the bill at a future meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Great. So I just want to talk a little bit, some of the news articles. I provided a section number, actually, let's go to update on the outreach events.
Oh, there's,
Sorry, I skipped that.
oh, that's okay. There's just two, and they're both in your, or that I have, if anybody from the outreach committee would like to add based upon the reports from staff a week or so ago. But April 30th, we had a landlord in Berkeley 101 workshop, which was very well attended.
How many?
Well,
Do you know how many people attended?
I have it, but I don't remember. Sorry,
Okay.
I know I got an email on it. But and then on May 7th, raising rents in Berkeley was a workshop for landlords that Moni Law did, and I'm not sure how many people showed for that either.
Okay, well, talking about raising rents in Berkeley, so in item number 5, it's a research article that came out talking about the constant quarterly mismatch indicator of changing rental affordability in the U.S. metropolitan areas, 2000 to 2016. This is the first time that there's actually have done some studies to look at how salaries and income is not keeping up with the increase of rental housing. And I think it's really important because lots of times when you hear media articles, they're not talking about how salaries or wages aren't keeping up. So I really recommend that you guys check that article out. The executive director provided a look at El Monte's motives for rent control on trial. So a good article. Also, there's an article from the Porterville Recorder regarding a visit I made down to Farmersville in Tulare County, talking about the increase in rents in that area because people are now moving out of the Bay Area, and so they're pushing farther east and south. And LA also is now pushing their north, and so rents in the rural areas in California are really going high, are increasing. Then another article, number 8, on politicians and his family reportedly evicted from Silicon Valley home after renting for 9 years. That is a good article. I recommend that. Executive director provided that. Any words there, Jay, on number 8?
No.
Nothing? Okay. And then I provided one other article. And then number 10, city to consider rental ordinances by Bay City News. So that's it on our information items. I recommend that folks take a peek at them. So moving on now to committee meeting updates and announcements. So budget and personnel.
We do not have a meeting scheduled. Staff is, do you have an update as to when we may want to schedule a meeting?
Probably the first week of June, I believe.
Okay. Sounds good.
Yeah.
Okay. And
So I'm just curious, like, I feel like I'm missing something. Like, we haven't voted on the budget yet, right?
no, that was,
Okay, good. I just want to make sure. Okay.
Just the fee. Yeah.
James, you missed that?
Yeah, I was like a little freaked out. I was like, I feel like we didn't vote on the budget, and I must have missed it.
okay. So let's go to evictions in section 8 and foreclosure.
There's nothing to report. We just had a meeting. We're losing a committee member, which is very sad. There should be.
Yes.
Yeah, so we'll be dealing with that, and the budget recommendation will cover the contracts with service providers. We
Okay.
didn't have quorum in order to actually bring a recommendation, but it'll go through the budget committee and come to the board.
Yeah, unfortunately, Commissioner Murphy's leaving some vacancies for us, so we're going to have to take a look at if commissioners are interested in joining the Eviction 8 committee or anyone else joining the outreach. Let me know.
We have quorum in the outreach committee.
Yeah.
Section 8, I'm happy to participate in.
Okay, great.
Good. Come on.
Okay, well, if you guys are interested, I mean, if anyone's interested, can you please email me, please? Okay? Thank you. Next, the IRA, AGA registration. We were going to meet, but unfortunately, a commissioner we're not able to meet because Commissioner is out, but we'll be scheduling something maybe in June.
Yeah, when she gets back. when Committee Chair Simon Weisberg gets back in the fold, I'll give everybody, I'll contact everybody and see when works in June.
Okay. And then Outreach Committee?
Yes, thank you so much. First and foremost, I really want to thank our staff. Manreet has been doing a really good job in terms of making sure that she's kept diligent notes on all the stuff that we want to make sure we incorporate in the survey. The process of the survey right now is that commissioners have given input along with previous commissioners' input, and right now we're kind of just waiting to see whether or not we want to hire an outside firm or we want to do it in-house. We did ask that that when it comes to the budget cycle, especially for next year, that perhaps we look into whether or not we can fund a total 360 survey for all tenants and all property owners for various reasons. It is the year of the census, and it would be a great way for people not just to be counted, but also understand that the rent board wants them to be heard. And also with property owners as well, right? Because we want to make sure everybody's counted. So there's that. I understand that it might be a bigger budget ask, so that's something to obviously consider, because normally when we do samples, we do about a 10% sample of the survey. So having said all of that, I know that we're going to have a table at Juneteenth. Thank you to staff, and I hope that those of you who have time will come out to do that. I believe it's on the 3rd June on Saturday, but I could be wrong. It is going to be on Ashby and Adeline, next to the BART station, Ed Roberts campus. So that's, I think that is it. Yes, that is it for now. And then we look forward to giving our friend Christine Shorts her proclamation once when everything is finalized. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. So next is a 4x4 committee joint meeting. As mentioned earlier, we are having a meeting on May 21st. 2 items on the agenda. We already got a preview of it, trust fund issue. And also, we're going to be reviewing an update.
Natural trust.
Natural trust, thank you very much, natural. But we're also going to be reviewing a law that actually, a change that was generated from here. 2 years ago, 3 years ago, we were able to amend the elevator law thanks to Christine Schwartz. And so we're going to get an update about what the city has done. The city was going to provide placards on buildings by the elevators. That was the last request, so that tenants and landlords would know their rights and responsibilities. So we know that people with disabilities, elevators are the biggest problem they have, because they literally are trapped in their buildings, in or out. They can't get in or they can't get out to disabilities. So I'm very happy to see what the city has done.
Paula, I have a question about the 4x4.
Sure.
My question is, I see that your next meeting is May 21st on Tuesday at 3 p.m. in the Cypress Room. And you already have your agenda set. This is for point of clarity. Would you be able to bring my recommendation by you being the chair on the next meeting?
To propose it? Yes,
Yes.
we could do that.
Okay, and I'll be there for that meeting.
Sure.
As a
we could do
public
that.
comment.
I could propose that it be put on the agenda for the next time we meet.
Thank you.
Sure. And then we go to Commissioner Chang, talk a little bit about the ad hoc committee on technology issues.
Thank you. Actually, I may have called the meeting, but I really want to give credit to Commissioner Solosky and staff, actually, for pointing out that we need an agenda. So we do have one, and we are going to be talking first and foremost about the status of our iPads. I noticed that the chair is modeling good behavior by using her iPad. No, really, thank you. Oh, I guess, excuse me, Commissioner Solosky, I apologize. But having said all of that, yeah, we're gonna be talking about that, and we are gonna now talk about how we could implement technology in terms of future council items being discussed. rent board items, sorry, not council items, although we might take on another council item, hopefully not. And then any other issues, the chair is very proactive. I appreciate it by always bringing up issues to committees that we should take on. I also want to empower other commissioners to do that, so thank you. Oh my goodness, and I apologize. Thank you, Chair Laverde. In terms of outreach, and I know I should have done this earlier, Solly and I, Commissioner Alpert and I had the opportunity to go to UC Berkeley to present. And actually, would you like to share a little more about the event that we went to?
Sure. So there's an organization on campus called the Basic Needs Center, which coordinates, resources for students about all kinds of issues, housing, food, and other kinds of basic needs. And they have at the end of every year, they have a dinner where they present awards to community members, organizations, and members of that organization which have made a big impact. And so this year, the Rent Board was honored as an organization for its services to the student community, and our staff member, Moni Law specifically, was honored for her service.
Moni Law.
So myself, Commissioner Chang, and Ms. Law were all able to receive those. So, yeah.
Yes, outreach is the most important thing that the Rent Board does, and so it's really great that Moni does an excellent job, and the committee, I'm really happy with the committee. Okay. Amy?
Just really quickly about the ad hoc committee on technology issues. We're scheduled to meet next Thursday, the 23rd at 5, but our agenda is already set. But the other items that the board has mentioned, we can certainly go on future agendas.
Great. Okay, then. So, seeing no other issues, Commissioner Murphy?
I forgot to say this earlier, but I don't want to go without saying it. So I was on the outreach committee almost the whole time I've been on the Rent Board, since 2016, I think. And I just want to say that I want to humbly say, Commissioner Chan, that I really, really, really appreciate all the times that you help bring my ideals back. Not one time have you made me feel uncomfortable when I was at the meeting, and I really appreciate that. You always have my vote. And Chair, I appreciate you too, because you was at first, you was first, right? So you was the first person, one of the first people I met. And so I wanted to thank you for that, because we had a talk and you helped welcome me to where I felt a little more comfortable. You shared some stuff with me, and I appreciate that, and it won't go forgotten. We've had some misunderstandings and we disagreed, but at the end of the day, we both agree that we are here for the people in the community, and at the end of the day, that's what matters, and I really appreciate that. And so, Commissioner Alejandro, you already know you have had my back since day one, and I so appreciate you. I'm so glad you at the Berkeley Drop-In Center now doing the work that I was doing too for the people. I know you care now for the people. I know you care. The other people, I don't know who care, but I know you care. John Solosky, I really, really, really appreciate you. At the beginning, you helped me with some stuff during the campaign that I was frustrated and ready to give up. And you called me over your house when you were sick. You were sick as a dog with the flu, and you helped me still, and I didn't leave, and we got it done. And then the staff, I want to thank the staff, Mr. Brown and Jay. You guys have been nothing but open to me. Whenever I ask for help, you guys always open your door to me, open policy. No question ever been a dumb question for y'all, and y'all never made me feel uncomfortable. So I really, really, really appreciate that. And Tregu, you know I'm your boo. And so I really appreciate you too for always having my back. And we disagreed too, but at the end we hug. And so I can appreciate that. Thank you. And Christine Schwartz, I really appreciate all the volunteer work that you've done. And I appreciate and keep doing it, because Berkeley needs more people like us to keep up doing the stuff without a paycheck. Thank you.
Commissioner Solosky.
Thank you, Commissioner Murphy. I want to express my gratitude for your work here, and I know you will continue this kind of work wherever you are. It's necessary in Vallejo, it's necessary in a lot of places, and just spread it around wherever you are, and keep doing what you're doing. Thank you. Can I make an announcement about a community meeting?
Sure.
While we have an audience of 3, 4. No, there's somebody's watching, maybe, my wife. Berkeley Tenants Union membership meeting is set for Monday, June 17th at 6:30 p.m. at the Sports Basement, if people know where that is on Milvia Street. I believe the address is 2727 Milvia. I think that's what it is, 2727 Milvia Street, Monday, June 17th, 6:30 p.m. An open membership meeting for Berkeley Tenants Union. Anybody who is a member or wants to be a member or is interested in listening and talking to us, please come. Thank you.
Okay, and one other thing?
I just want to remind everybody in the community that May is Mental Health Awareness Month. So do some research, teach somebody some tools you know, help stop stigma. And your existence is necessary. So thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Trega, but then Commissioner Chang.
And actually, thank you for mentioning Mental Health Month, because it's also API Heritage Month, so thank you.
Okay, Commissioner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I think we're in future items, and I just want to make sure, although I think Commissioner Chang may have alluded to this, but June, let's absolutely give Christine Schwartz the award that she so deserves. Also, Commissioner Murphy, if you will be able to make it, I hope that.
Sure, yes.
She's in the Philippines.
Oh, when
I'll
that.
return on the 6th, so I'll be back.
Oh, you'll be good.
Yeah, I'll be back June 6th.
Yeah,
Okay,
I would love to have us agendize a proclamation in honor of Commissioner Murphy, and just wanted to take a point of personal privilege and let you know that I'm still having trouble with the news sinking in that you might be leaving us. It's not going to be the same without you on this dais. But I also, every time I feel that way, I feel a little bit selfish, because I know that the entire community of Vallejo is so lucky to have you join it and do the amazing, amazing work that you have been doing for so long in this community. And so whatever you need, we have your back.
Thank you.
Commissioner Alpert, okay, Commissioner Sotovejil?
Two things. One, I'm going to hold my words for Christina Murphy for when we give her a proclamation, because I want to make it well thought out and specific. But thanks for being a great ally and a good friend, and holding folks here accountable to the community from your lens, and representing with a blunt and a brew. If you all understand what that means, you get what I'm talking about. But if you don't, then I get it. I also want to put, since we're on future agenda items as well?
Sure.
Announcements? Okay, cool. Back in February of February 27th, 2017, we had a nomination process, or a proposal of a nomination process, and I want to get to that quick. I think
So we'll
we
be
should-
discussing that in the June meeting.
So can I just finish real quick?
So-
So I wanted to put on the agenda for the June meeting of a potential process, and I would love for it to reflect the process that we did last time, because I think most of the members of the board are familiar with that particular process. The process before that was just chaotic and just didn't make sense compared to this process, more simple. So if we can put that on the June agenda.
Yeah, it's on the June agenda. Yeah,
Great.
it's something that's been measured.
Thank you.
Okay, and I just want to say, I want to thank you, Commissioner Murphy. I am very sad that you're leaving, because what you provided today is a bold thinking. It is out of the box thinking. It is what we need. I think just as being leaders, that we need to be bold, because I don't see Berkeley as being more inclusive anymore. I think it's being more exclusive. And so, being poor in Berkeley is now becoming criminalized. And so I really like the fact that you're proposing something that could really potentially help people, and maybe it can go through. So I'm sad that you're leaving, because you've kicked it into gear now. You've kicked it into gear, and then you're leaving. So If there's no more comments?
But I have y'all, and I'll be there for public comment.
Yes. Oh, okay, Commissioner Alpert, yes.
I was going to move that we adjourn.
Excuse me?
I was going to motion that we adjourn.
Sure. I second it. Close the meeting. Okay.
It's a great celebration in our community. Yeah. And it takes up like. It's on the island.
Christina. Christina. Sure.
I was writing it so fast. Sure, that was hilarious. I had to throw in a joke, right? Worked. I was you guys, that was good. So anyways, yeah, it's beautiful. It's fun. There's music. There's.
So, yeah, so you do like LinkedIn or Facebook, Instagram, all this other stuff. So it's $50, but it's like a lifetime. It's not like a renewal. No, so I like, it's called Restream. I think that's, yeah. So you set that up on Google, it's $50. And it's great. I mean, I'm fairly certain on service. I'm gonna try to figure out how to do that with this link to VCN. Because that way, well, for certain, we never have. This is a live, this is a feed from the yeah. Has a box. So it's just me and him on a drone. Yeah, so you talk to James to see who does the IT here, because no, I mean, but who would be the specific one person for this part for this movie is there must be some sort of there's obviously a feed coming. We just have to see where. Yeah, that's what I'm saying, the point person who like really said, yeah, because we don't know. This was all set up years ago, Ariana's director, and so, yeah, so that's, no, it's fine. I would just say, yeah, I mean, honestly, I've been trying to set a date
Hello. Hello, everybody. Hello, 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 hello. Say to the king. Alani. Hello.
Paula and James, we're right over here. I gotta adjust my car. I gotta adjust my car. Hey James, we're right here.
I'm coming. I'm coming.
So instead of like everybody getting an iPad and not using it, which is clearly what's happening, and keep in mind, like you can only get this reimbursement if you buy a new technology. So if you have an existing one, then
And then
nobody else. The only stuff that it takes is the reimbursement. They don't.
Yeah, but remember that we have access
Yeah, but you can access all. Well, it's different. So like we can.
Right. Yeah, you do look happier now. Oh, okay. Yeah, I walked right up to the counter and said, excuse me, sir. Why does he act like that? He's like, I don't know. Ask him.
maybe it was, that was so sweet of him. I saw him in the bathroom and I was 99% sure he was going to. Oh, okay. I was looking at him, that's why I said. And then he didn't, I was gonna grab him out. Oh, that's not your concern. No, I would have done it, but I figured by the time I got the town, yeah, you would have. So can you talk to them about this? Like yeah, but maybe. No, I mean, just, I hate to be able to adjust the temperature when I was in here, it just wouldn't let me do it.
Okay, you can call me, 'cause I'm here. We have a newbie in the PM over here, so he didn't know what the hell to do. So I was back and forth. But usually, it's hot in here now.
Yeah, well, it was hot in here
Earlier.
And it is usually, I understand when it's cold and rainy outside, but I just, like, do I not have the ability to?
You do. You just go all the way, for the kick on, you go all the way up to the top, 74, to get the heat to turn on. And then when it starts getting a little warm, you turn it all the way down, a little arrow all the way down until whatever's outside. It'll tell you what's on the outside. You turn it on the outside.
Okay, I did that, but then you came in and said, oh, it's stuck on heat.
Yeah, it was on heat.
Because I turned it all the way down to 62. No, I didn't want to go that low because I assumed it was going to work. I didn't want it to freeze.
No, it has, the transformer's up there, and it has to go below what's outside.
Okay, got it. I'll do that. It wasn't a huge deal, it was mostly me because I'm running around, but
Yeah.
it was a little stuff.
Yeah, it was a little stuffy in there. And usually they just open the windows.
Right. Which I thought about, and I'm like, oh, it's raining, I don't want to like have.
There's no rain coming there.
Well, I didn't want to.
You guys know you own half of this building, so yeah. Your name is all on this building.
I know, but if that were the case, then we wouldn't have to pay to use it. We had a contract with POS2 just to have the right, and we pay them. So if we owned half of it, we would have like those rights. You could have a big statement on it, like you would have a whole contract.
Why is your names all on the building?
City of Berkeley?
Yes, honey.
Well, because the school board is associated with the city of Berkeley, but it doesn't mean the city. I wish we owned it, because then it would save us $1,200 a month. Right. That we pay to use it. But, that pays for their services.
Well, I'm glad Diesel was here tonight. I like to support that open.
Oh,
That
no.
window.
What, in that old, I would always have towels, just for that.
No, with that guy. Look at you, got
Oh,
roses.
yeah. So you see,
Okay, Amy, I'm gonna find the tablet and contact you on the 6th.
No problem. Safe journey.
Thank you.
Where's she?
The Philippines.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so she's leaving the board because you have to go to Berkeley to go to the board.
Right.